It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to feel grief. It's okay for you to be upset and angry and to go through all of these emotions, because otherwise you're not going to heal.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Glam Reaper Podcast. The Glam Reaper is in the wild. Once again, we went from Central Park, and now we're in Boston. Are we in downtown Boston? I think we're in downtown.
Yes, it's the theatre district.
The theatre district. And I am your host, the Glam Reaper, Jennifer Muldowney. And with me, so I'm here at the IAPCC. I think I'm getting that probably wrong. Anyway, it's an international pet convention. I'll leave some details. Very exciting convention. We'll touch on that a bit later. But I have one of my dear friends, Sydney, here with me, and she owns a
pet cremation facility. Yes.
We're going to get into it.
Okay.
So now we just lost our dog earlier this year, so this has been a difficult convention, but I think it's a really important topic for us to talk about. We've already talked about pet loss on this podcast. So tell me, well, first of all, how long have you been in business?
So I've been open 4 years. I had no experience in the funeral industry. Like, I just jumped in headfirst. Like, I have a teaching degree in elementary ed. So not anything that I thought I would be into. But here we are, 4 years. And
what made you?
So the building that I'm in, this is to make a long story short.
It's okay. We love a long story.
Yes. So my facility is in Arizona. I was born and raised in the town that my facility is in, but I did take a hiatus to Utah. It was just time for a change. We'd been there. My husband had started in his career, and it was just time for something different. Somehow we ended up back in my small town, which was not what was our initial plan, but, the Lord has plans for us all. I mean, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that there's a reason for everything that happens.
Yeah.
Whatever that reason might be, and I honestly believe sometimes that reason presents itself immediately, and sometimes it doesn't present itself until 5 years down the road. And you just don't know what that reason is until it shows itself. So we ended up back in our small town. And so my grandfather has been there for many, many years, since the 60s. And he has an industrial park. My building is in that industrial park. It was empty. He felt like there needed to be a cremation facility for pets where someone could He did. It was all him. And I was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm thinking about this, but he didn't want anything to do with it. He's more of an entrepreneur. He wanted to start it. He wanted something in that building. It was driving him crazy that it was empty. And so that's where we are. So he made the investment for the equipment, and and then I just took it from there. I mean, he's not had anything to do with the business. He bounces ideas off of.
So he was like, this is the idea, this is the space, you're going to do it.
Yeah, he felt like it would do well, and it was basically like, okay, you're going to do it.
Yeah, and you are. I've known you for, has it been a year? No, it's only like 6-7 months, I think, because it was
because we
April.
Really met in April. Yes.
We're fast friends.
Yes.
You can probably tell by the vibes.
Yes.
So, I mean, you're like the perfect person, as far as I'm concerned, for this kind of...
It's so funny that you say that, because I would have never thought that. Not that I'm not a compassionate person, but I've not ever... prior to this, I hadn't had that experience with someone who's really distraught, with someone who's really grieving, someone who's upset. But anyways, continue.
But I feel like it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like you have the perfect, like, I'm not about to compliment myself by saying this, but like often, like when I've been looking for assistance and stuff, I feel like I've either found somebody like super emotional or very logical.
Sure.
And it's really hard to find that mix of the two, which I have. It's probably the schizo Gemini in me. Yeah, don't tell anybody. But I feel like I see that with you. Like, you are logical. I can see you as being a planner, but like you have that compassion. And it's probably, I mean, from being a teacher, that background, does that help, do you think?
I mean, I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Having a husband who's a police officer, and being able
that
to
helps if you get any rowdy people at the crematorium.
Yes, he's able to just come in.
Yeah.
Or if we have to get rid of, a body or something.
Yeah.
Seems to do that.
We'll cut that out. No, but like, remember the example that the guy gave yesterday about like how he had to call the police to...
Yes. Yes. I mean, when you're talking about something like grief, it's extremely high emotions. And some people have really good coping skills and some people don't.
Yeah.
And yes, I do think being a teacher, you know, and I think some of it's just my personality.
Yeah.
It's just...
You have a calming...
who I am,
yeah.
you know. And like I said, I would have never thought. However, people will say to me, I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you do this. Like, I couldn't do this job. And it's so interesting because it's just myself. I don't have any employees. I do have someone who watches the business from time to time, but she's not a regular employee. So she watched my business when I came in April.
Yeah.
And we met in Florida, and she's watching my business now. You know, so she only comes in for like a week at a time, and it's sporadic.
Yeah.
A year. She's not a regular. It's usually just myself. And the reason that is because trying to find someone who can be compassionate in the lobby with someone, someone who's crying, someone who's upset, someone who's had a traumatic grief. I compartmentalize grief into boxes. Mm-hmm. I think there's preemptive grief. When let's say your pet has cancer or they're sick and you know it's coming.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit you the same, but you're still incredibly devastated by the loss. Then you have sudden grief. Your pet just passed away unexpectedly. You had no idea they had cancer, and you had to put them down because there was nothing you could do for them. You know, or your pet runs away, unfortunately, and you can't find them, you know, and you just have the sudden loss. And then there's traumatic grief, where your pet is hit by a car or something horrific really happens. Your pet jumps out of the vehicle, say they're in the back of a truck. Where we live, that's a perfect example. Something happens to them, and then you have this, all of a sudden you've had this trauma and you've lost your pet. Yeah. It's not just like I had a trauma, but we were able to save our pet. It's I had a trauma and now I'm grieving. Yeah. And so people say, I don't know how you do this, but I love being able to give someone back their pet. And we were just talking to a friend at lunch about the word closure and how that's not really a thing when you're talking about grief. And I agree. I think you become better at coping with your new normal. Because when people say, oh, time, it'll get better with time. It's like, no, you get better at coping with the normal. Because, and I always tell clients this, I had a friend that lost a child. She was older, but she passed away in her sleep, and it was really sudden, and she really struggled with it. And so she told me about something that she read about how the brain makes connections. So when you have a routine, you get up in the morning, you feed your dog, you take him for a walk. You know, you get him water, you take him to a daycare. If you're in the city, you let him out in the yard. If you're in the country, or you leave him for the day, they've got a doggy door, whatever your situation is. You know, and then you come home at night, you feed your dog, you take him for a walk, whatever you're going to do. And when you have a loss, now, like I would use this example, if I had a sibling that I wasn't close to, the loss wouldn't be the same because I don't have those same connections in my brain where I'm constantly talking to them. Now, if I lost my mother, I talk to my mother like 3, 4, 5 times a day. Like, it would kill me. And my brain would really have to work to repair itself. So even though you're not suffering physical trauma, your brain still struggles. So you lose your pet. Now you go to feed them and your brain goes, wait a minute, I can't make that connection. Because my dog is gone. And so then your brain is having to remake these connections. So your brain is still having to heal itself, even though you didn't suffer a trauma. That's how I look at it. And she told me about that, and I thought, wow. And I share that with my clients because it is. It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to feel grief. It's okay for you to be upset and angry and to go through all of these emotions, because otherwise you're not going to heal. It's going to reside there. So again, we talk about the closure, which I don't think is a thing. I think you can heal from it. I think you can change your patterns and your behaviors, and I think that can help you heal from the loss. But I love helping people get to that point where they're like, okay, I know I've lost my pet, but I've got them back. And now I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep taking the steps that I need to continue to heal. And that's what I love about it.
No, I love it's a really beautiful way of putting it. And like, even in similar, I kind of say, you know, when your heart breaks from a loss, no matter what that loss is, and it can be a divorce, it can be loss of a job. You know, we kind of made a joke of loss of a toothbrush. Like, if you're attached to the toothbrush, whatever.
I mean, it's all
no
you.
judging here. But it's like, you know, like an open wound that you'll get on a leg, it heals, but there's a scar left behind.
Right.
And so, like, I don't think that any adult goes through life or gets to the end of their life without multiple scars on their heart.
Right.
And it repairs, but it never goes back to the way it was. So it's like, and, you know, even when it comes to like adopting a new dog or a new cat or whatever, I'm like, you're not replacing anything. That's got, like, getting something new, it's a Band-Aid, it's not going to put it over it. Your heart just grows bigger.
Right.
Right? Like, it's
right.
You know, you're just making more room for more love.
Right. And I think people have a fear of that. They worry that getting another pet will
be cheating.
Yes. Like, it's, oh my gosh, like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's not replacing.
Yeah. No.
And honestly, where we were talking about that brain trauma, sometimes for some people, getting a pet immediately after, if it's one they really have a connection with.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying run out there and just get a pet.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you've got a connection with them. But let's say it's a couple weeks after. Maybe you go to the shelter and you look at one dog and you're like, this might be the one. But you're kind of having that. For some people, it helps.
Yeah.
Because then they go back into that same routine. It's not a replacement, but it does kind of help your brain go, okay, I can continue to do this. Like, it's a different pet. I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm still going through the same routines. And sometimes that's healing for people. Not everyone. Yeah. Because we were just talking to another friend who said she waits several years before she gets another pet. Like, it's a big deal to her.
And that's we're all different. Right. Like, exactly what you described is exactly what we did in our family. So when Roxy died 15 years ago, we were just traumatized. We had her, like, I had her through my teenage years. It's what my TEDx talk ended up being based on. But, like, she was, when you're, especially when you're, when you're a member of your family, when you're a girl teenager, like, you tell them everything.
Right, you're like,
this, you know, it's a boy
journal.
It's all this dog is literally my journal. She's just locked. She can't say a word. But so when she passed away like that, we ended up quite quickly going back to the breeders, and we weren't even sure if they were still going to be in operation
or if they even had a litter at the time.
Exactly. And exactly as you said, it just so happened that Poppy, the dog, she was born the week Roxy died.
Oh my God.
So we literally felt her soul went up and came back down in a different form, but just in a, Roxy knew these are going to be traumatized. That, you know, I'm sending a little love bomb to kind of, So literally the photos, maybe we can post a few of them here, but the photos I have of when we got Poppy first, she was the size of a teacup. I mean, she was teeny tiny. But, like, you'll see us, we all held her at our heart because we were just heartbroken. Right. And we honestly, we loved this little bundle, but we were also like, oh my God, traumatized a bit ourselves. And, you know, again, with a pet, when you're taking it, you know the likelihood is you're going to outlive it. So you know you're going through this heartbreak again. Right. And unfortunately that did happen. And what we actually always used to say, and I don't want to get emotional now, but what we always, because we were so heartbroken at the time, we got Poppy and we would always hold her to our chest, every one of us. That was her comfort. So, like, whenever she was upset with fireworks or things, we would hold her to our chest. So when I wasn't at home, unfortunately, when Poppy passed away, but I asked my mum, I said, when she went away, how were you holding her? And she was holding her to her chest. And I was like, that's all I need to know. Right. Because that was her, that was her, that was her way. So, but will we get, like, we haven't, so a couple of months have passed now. And it's funny, we have many podcast episodes where we talk about human loss. And that's actually something else to talk about, is that the emotion that I've seen at this conference has been wild. It's been really beautiful to see, and I feel like it's because it's like-minded people coming together. But to your point, after Poppy passed, we now haven't replaced her. We haven't gotten, replace her, we haven't gotten another one because I don't think we're ready. And exactly to your point, everyone's different, every situation is different, and you just have to go with what makes sense for you at the time. Right.
I always tell people, if you leave yourself open, maybe you're not actively looking, because some people are like, I just can't look at their dog. I just start tearing up. It's really emotional for me. I totally get it. You know, some people just aren't ready, but I always say, if you leave yourself open, something will come. You know, maybe they'll wander in your yard, or they'll jump in your car.
And just,
you know, like if you see a dog walking down the road and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm worried. And you open the door and literally the dog jumps in your car and you're like, that was it.
That was it.
Or you're walking to Walmart and somebody's got puppies. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, something happens.
Yeah.
I have found, and I always just tell people, leave yourself open.
Yes.
You never know what's going to come. Because again, no coincidence.
Yeah.
I feel like pets come into your life
Yeah.
for a reason. And I feel like there's more. You know, even when people say, I'm not getting another one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That might not
yeah.
be true.
No, I do. I like to think that it's not about replacing. It's not about like putting a Band-Aid on. It's your heart. There's more room. You've got more love to give.
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
That's really what it's about. And think of all the little dogs and cats that are like in shelters.
Oh, I know.
I know.
Yeah, it's, you know, and that's when they always say, and it's like, I always
adopt, don't shop.
Yes, I always see it online. Oh my gosh, I have puppies. And I'm like, there are pets in rescue shelters that have been there for a long time, 6 months, 9 months, a year, over a year. And it's like, those pets need, and I'm always so grateful for the people that come in and say, you know, I mean, unfortunately, we have a dog that we've had her for 7 years. It's just a wonderful family dog, and I love her. She's really my husband's dog, but I still love her.
Yeah.
Charlie she's just the best dog, and she's always been a guard dog for me. And I'll probably, you know, when the time comes, I'll probably be like, oh my gosh, I miss my guard dog.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I get emotional. Like,
yeah.
There we go. You know, and I don't want to think about that day. And maybe so I'm putting up my own, you know, somebody who cremates, I'm putting up my own barriers because I know it's going to come, you know, she's just getting older. Unfortunately, she is not a very dog-friendly dog.
Yeah. So
we do have another dog, but she's extremely submissive. And that's just how she works with Charlie's personality. So it'll be interesting because Dottie, she gets along with any dog. So we could have another dog or a cat. But Charlie, she's just not. She is the alpha. She likes to be the only one. And she even struggles with Dottie sometimes. But you know what I mean? Like, so I'm always grateful for people who come in and say, well, we love adopting, you know, older dogs that need medical help, you know, or maybe they've got something like a pet that has diabetes that needs the insulin injections, or a dog that's got a heart problem and has to take the heart meds.
Yeah.
There's not always a lot of people who are willing or able to adopt them. So I'm always grateful for those people.
And there's particular families who they'll only adopt senior dogs.
Sometimes,
like that's their, like, this is our calling in life.
Senior dogs
We're going to give them their last best year, 2 years. My hat goes off to those people because I don't know that I could go through that heartache every year, but they do it over and over again.
Because they're adopting them at 11 or 12 or 13 years old.
And old dogs are the sweetest.
They are great with. They are, but you know, sometimes it has to be people that don't have small children. You know, or there has to be a home that's only got one animal. Yeah. Because that's why they're there, because they're a little bit pet aggressive. Yeah. Or, you know, and so we've always been really careful with our dog because I just would hate for Charlie. I would hate for something to happen. Yeah. So we've always been really careful, but I'm always grateful for that. For those people. So so if you're looking for a pet, look at the shelters. Yes. They really
Yes, they do. Yeah. And now tell us, in terms of the business, because we don't want to keep getting too emotional, so we're bawling, crying. In terms of the business, are we expanding? I know you're a one-woman show right now.
I am.
Do you want to keep it that way forever?
So I'm working
we've thought about it.
I know. I have thought about it.
10-year plan.
Yes. So if we're speaking so we're almost at the 5-year plan, which you're going to be so proud. Hopefully I'll have a new machine next year. So that we're working on that, you know, at the moment. But our space is kind of limited. Our building is not. At the time when we started, it was like, okay, we could probably make this work. But as I've learned and as I've seen other facilities and as I've kind of seen through my own experiences with my clients what people really need, I know how I want to change things. So 10-year plan, I'd love to be in a new building with my machines, whether it's my own building or a building that I've been able to customize. That's the goal. Right. Of course, I'd love to have an employee in there somewhere. Yeah.
So you can actually go on vacation.
Yes, but you know, and I don't know if we came back to this, but with an employee, you're looking for someone that can be both compassionate and someone who can handle the grittiness of taking care of pets. Yeah. Because you do get some that are just not in the best shape. Yeah. And
I mean, you've educated me on a lot of that this time.
You've got to really treat them with love and respect, and you've got to be able to handle the clients. So you have to be able to be in that lobby and be compassionate and then turn around and say, okay, I've got to do a paw print for this dog, but it's a bit of a mess. Yeah. You know, and so I need someone who can do both.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Personality. But Yeah, 10-year plan, I'd love to be in my own building that's totally customized to what I want people to feel when they walk through the door. And I've kind of done the best that I can with what I have.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I look at it and I think, but people seem to be okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, for the time being. But, I would love to get another machine because I just can't keep up with it all.
Yeah.
You know, myself. And once I get that new machine, I'm going to kind of see where things are at. But that's where my goal is. Like, I love, you know, and the place where I'm at, even though it's small, it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just continue to grow.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
That's most businesses' dream is to keep growing. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, do you think because obviously we've had some vendors here, do you think you're going to go into the aquamation or like the water cremation, or are you going to stick with fire for the new machine, or what are you thinking?
Well, we kind of talked about this yesterday. I've actually personally never seen an aquamation facility. I've only kind of seen what's been presented.
Yeah.
So I prefer to stick with
fire.
I do. I know we were kind of talking about this yesterday. I feel like it's more traditional.
Yeah.
I know you were saying, though, maybe it's a little bit more, I don't want to say the word violent, but that's the best way to explain it. I can see where it can be a little bit, it is, you know, we kind of associate fire with, you know, like a house fire. Someone passing away. I mean, it's done in a more confined, controlled environment.
Yeah.
And, you know, but the aquamation, I'm just not sure of it.
Yeah.
You know, I need to do more research on my end.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think for me, if I had like the ideal space for myself, I would have one of each. Sure. Because I kind of, like I think I was saying yesterday, like some people are just allergic to fire, and I mean that not an allergy sense, but like just no way fire, like I'm, you know,
the way some people are with burial.
Exactly. It's like just people have a fear of burial, of the maggots getting me and all this, or of being burnt alive, or then with aquamation, water cremation, it's I don't want to drown.
Right.
And I'm like,
there is definitely an association.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating because it's like, well, you know you're dead, but I guess nobody's come back from the dead to say, do you experience things that, you know?
Right.
So it's an interesting
concept to think about. Yeah.
So I feel like it's a difficult decision to make an either or, and I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat as you, that they don't know enough about aquamation.
Right. It's just so new.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is so new.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
It's hard to turn down something you know well and works well.
It is.
For something brand new.
Really, the things I would say, the things that I consider, in case there's anyone who's also maybe considering, who's watching, is of course cost, and I think it's similar.
Yeah, I believe so.
As far as now, I guess maybe that's incorrect, because we could say, well, how much space are you getting? Because when you're really thinking about cremation by fire, you kind of have to have a lot of room, but then again, maybe people are positioning the bodies different.
Yeah.
They're more different than I do. I like them to be more natural.
Yeah.
So a lot of times my pets, their legs are out, like they would be if they were laying on the floor. And so those pets take up a little bit more space.
Yeah.
I know some people kind of curl their legs and stuff in. It's a little bit difficult when you pick up from like a veterinary office or somewhere else if they just don't have the room, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bodies might be a little bit not in the best shape.
Yeah.
And that can be hard too. So you have to think, okay, well, this is how much I can fit in my retorts if I'm going to do a partitioned cremation, or if I'm doing an exclusive or a communal. This is how much I can fit if I have an aquamator.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. Cost, space, you know, how much can you really do in each machine in a day's time? And so what's your productivity? Then I think you're looking at space in your facility.
Yeah.
A retort takes up a lot of space. You have to have space. Unless you've got the fire retardant walls and stuff, you have to be cautious of how close you are to a wall, how close you are, you know, and then you've got your stack.
And it needs re-bricking as well, isn't that it?
Yes. So, you know, a lot of them claim you can go a long time or this many cremations before you have to start thinking about it. I've had mine for 4 years. When I had it serviced just in the past couple of weeks, just to kind of, because I'm a woman, maybe, I don't know, but I'm like, I want to make sure my machine is continuing to run. We like to preventative. Just talk about that.
Yeah.
He said probably 10 years they would come in and redo it based on how my cremator looks. Okay, so if I only have to pay that every 10 years, but the rest of my equipment is still running well, you know, I'm not really sure, you know, how, but, so space, again, talking about, and then the other thing to me when you're considering the two is the cremation process itself. You know, what is done with aquamation? How do you do the little teeny tiny pets? Because the same has to be considered for cremation by fire. Now, I use stainless steel pans for my teeny tiny ones because even the tiniest ones, you can still get something. You know, there's no reason why you shouldn't have something because even a little mouse, they still have a bone structure. So there should still be something. Even little tiny birds, they still have something. So how does that work with the baskets in the aquamator? Are they a fine mesh or how do we protect those little tiny bones? And how does your pet have to be positioned in order to go into the aquamator so you can get the best use of it? You know, so those are just all things to consider. And yes, I would agree. I'm familiar with the cremation by fire. And that's what I've done. So you do have that tendency to kind of stay, not saying the aquamation may not be the future of cremation. But I do think there are lots of things to consider when you're talking about spending that amount of money on a machine. Is it the best for your business? Because again, everyone's different. You know, and we're talking about being, you know, conscious of the earth. You know, I know a lot of places in California have aquamators because it's more conscientious. But then again, my machine, you know, I think it's pretty efficient, you know, and as long as you're just doing pets, you're not putting other things in the machine, you know, such as documents or other things, then I think you're leaving less of a footprint. But again, it's things to be considering. What do you want for your business?
Exactly.
What do you want it to stand for?
You have to think about your clientele, everything. You have to think of everything. Use your target audience and then price and how often do you have to update the machine and stuff like that. I mean, and they're also coming out with developments of these machines constantly, you know. Everything is just, so
we
which is
found
great.
this way to do it, or we found this way to do it. Or, as we've talked before, there's other ways to do burials. I know Anna, who we met at the ICCLA in April, she's in Guatemala, and they do composting with their pets, where they bury them. I can't remember the time frame, but you know, they or we're talking green burials, like just these different ways that you can, and you just have to decide what is your clientele looking for. I'm out in the country, so there's not as much of a desire for those type of things. So, oftentimes people will bury their own pets, you know, because they have the space to.
That does not happen in Manhattan.
If you're talking about somewhere like Manhattan, you're having to look for other options because it's just not available to you. I mean, you could bury your pet maybe like in a flower pot or something. Your balcony, I'm not sure about that.
Never thought of that. Top tip. But depends on the size.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, you really, a little hamster, you know, is that potential for Manhattan? Yes, you could potentially do that. But, you know,
She seems to think people have balconies in Manhattan.
I really don't. I mean, maybe it's one of those where it's like, the penthouse has a balcony.
That's it. The only one built or floor in the whole building.
I've never been there, so thank you for
you'll have to come visit.
Yes, I will.
You can tell a non-Manhattanite. You're like, no, there's literally nothing. I mean, you could bury it in a pot and leave it in your bedroom, but it's not really going to smell very good after a while.
I'm not sure, you know. But those are all things to consider. What is it your need in your area or your location or your state? And go from there.